So as you know, today we'll be talking about monday.com for sales teams. And just a quick introduction, my name is Alex. I'm a customer success manager here at monday.com. And today is going to be a theme-based webinar. So if it's your first time checking out monday.com, I do recommend watching the basic walkthrough before jumping into this session. But what are we going to cover today? So the first thing is how to use monday.com to track sales pipelines. Then we'll talk about how to use integrations and automations to enhance your workflow. I'm going to highlight a few boards that I've created for you guys, so a CRM board as well as a sales overview board. We're going to talk about a sales request forms and how to use Monday to gather sales requests, dashboards, and then finally a Q&A session. So in total, it should be about 30 to 35 minutes of presenting and then about the last 15 minutes of Q&A, because I do want to get to as many questions as possible. Just a few housekeeping rules to begin with. So please enter your questions anytime during the webinar in the Q&A section, not in the chat box section. So that's very important. We will try to get to all the questions, but if we don't answer yours, don't worry. Feel free to reach out to support@monday.com after the webinar. There will be a recording that is emailed to each of you guys at the end of the webinar, so you don't need to write in to request it. And if there's any technical issues, if you can't hear me at any point, feel free to write that in the chat box. Okay, so without further ado, let's actually jump into monday.com right now. And you guys all know how to build a board at this point, but what I want to highlight for you guys is some of the templates that we do offer just to start within monday.com. And it's located here in the template section. And on the left-hand side, we can see some of the sales templates that we offer. So sales and customers, sales process, lead management, etc. There's a bunch of really cool templates that you can have at your disposal here to use within your account. Additionally, we do also offer templates through monday.com/stories. It's actual templates used by paying customers who've given us permission for you guys to use their templates as well. So I do recommend checking that when you get a second. Now, the first board that I want to highlight is how to use Monday for a sales pipeline. So in this case, I have my colleague Lucy here, and let's talk really quickly about the structure of the board. So the board is broken up here, and the groups are the months that are upcoming. So I have my pipeline for the month of September, October, and then I also have a group here for my close won. The name of my items or pulses are going to be the names of my leads. So BMW, Toyota, Honda, etc. for September. October is Volvo, Mercedes, McLaren, and then Nissan is my close won deal. I have a people column here to show ownership, and I also added in some status columns to show the different stages in a pipeline. Just a friendly reminder, you can always rename any of the columns that you add to your board, as well as the status labels to fit the verbiage of your choosing. But in this case, I'm just going to stick with the basic working on it, done or stuck labels. Intro call, presentation, negotiation. You can also have a status column to reflect priority. I have my due date to show my expected close date of the deal. You can even add a deadline column or a deadline mode, excuse me, to take it a step further. A progress tracker to show what % of the pipeline has been completed. A rating column to show priority. I have a few numbers columns here. One to show the deal size, the close probability, and again, you can change the functions of it by clicking on the bottom of your number cells, $, maybe a British pound or euro, for example, but I just want to see the average here and close probability. I have a text column to show who's the point of contact at my lead, an email, or it could also be a text column as well to put in that person's email address, a phone column. And it's also good to know that when you're using the email or phone column within Monday and you were to click onto any one of these links, it will pop up in the default service or software that you're using for your computer. So for example, if you guys have Skype and you click on this number, Skype will pop up and you can simply just make a call directly from Monday. Super helpful. I also have a column here to show the time zone of my leads, because I don't want to be calling them during the middle of the night. And then I also have a tags column here. And as you know, tags are just a great way to link boards together, but it's also a good way to categorize information. And in this case, I want to categorize my leads, whether they are a new lead, an upsell opportunity, a renewal or perhaps a churned account that I want to revive, for example. Great. So now that we have the setup of our sales pipeline board, it's pretty straightforward. I want to talk about how to use integrations and automations. And you're going to hear this throughout the webinar on how these advanced features that are still pretty new can really bring out a lot on the platform for you guys. So again, to check out your automations, you can click on the top right here. And I've added in a few automations for you guys already. But first, just a friendly reminder, the automations are broken up into categories based off of what the trigger and action is. So if you wanted to find an automation for a status change, you can simply go to this category, for example. But some of the board automations that I have on this particular board for Lucy here, let's look at the first one together. So 30 days after expected close date arrives and my negotiation is not done, move item to lost. So I want to make sure that my pipeline is up to date, for example, especially if you're sharing your board with like a manager or maybe even just potential coworkers. You can build your automations in a way to make sure that your pipeline is clean every month. And when I click into each of these underlying items here, which means that they are editable, I can specify perhaps how many days do I want to be notified after. So in this case, 30 days after my date column on my board arrives and my status of negotiation is or is not, in this case is not, and then a particular label, move item to my loss group. So pretty self-explanatory there. Okay, the second automation I have is when a negotiation changes to done, notify, in this case, Alex, notify my sales manager, notify my team, notify my director. You can notify a certain user in your account, an entire team if you want, all the board subscribers. You can even notify a particular column as well. And then the second one is when negotiation changes to done, move item to close won. So I want all of my won deals to be in my close won group. You can even specify the verbiage of your notification as well. So in this case, when my negotiation status changes to a particular label, notify, and this is where you would create what the notification reads. I would recommend making use of some of these presets here to give a little bit more context into your notification. So in this case, I have a preset for the item name, and let's just say the paperwork has been signed. So the name of my lead is, let's say, Volvo. The paperwork has been signed, close won, and notify my manager, for example. Okay. Now let's jump into some of the integrations that we have on the board here. Okay, and as you know, we do have about 25 or 30 or so integrations. So one second, I think I might actually be having some headphone problems. Let me actually try to turn on my mic if possible, if it's a little bit hard to hear me. Okay, that should be better, guys. I apologize if I was a little soft coming off. But some of the integrations that we offer here are listed here. And let's actually focus on some email integrations. So depending on the service that you're using for the account that's registered with monday.com, in my case, we're using Gmail. Some of you guys might be using Outlook. Go ahead and add an email integration. And let's look at this first recipe that I created here. So when an email, and you can also specify like if a subject is X, Y, and Z, or if the email contains a certain language in the body, for example. But in this case, I'm just going to keep it any email. From my email column, or it could also work with your text column again, is received, added as an update in an item. Okay, and when I jump back to the board here, this is just a great way to centralize your communication with your clients, especially if you're working on your pipeline. Maybe if you wanted to send an email externally, but you want their reply to appear within Monday, just to keep everything in context as well. I have here in this case my Toyota item, and I can see that there's an update within this item here. So um, in this case, you can see a integration that I use so that when a status changes to send an email to someone. So if I look back at my integrations here, I believe it's revolving around this recipe here. So this recipe says, when date arrives or X amount of days before or after a particular date column on your board and a status of, in this case, negotiation is not done, send an email to my email column or send an email to Alex, for example. And the way that you can build your email is very similar to how you would compose an email within Gmail Outlook. It just as default. In this case here, I have making use of presets. So hi, and then you can specify the person on the POC column, your point of contact column, for example, and you could say something like, I'd like to hop on a quick call this week to finalize pricing. And they'll receive this email message if, again, it's 7 days before the expected close date. So it's just a nice way to automate your follow-ups with your potential leads. If you know that a hard due date is coming up, this integration is super helpful just to kind of take a load off your plate and make sure that these emails get sent out on the back end, and you can expect a response to populate directly into your monday.com board. So I think this is all pretty straightforward. The TAN's sales pipeline is very similar to Lucy's, so we're going to go ahead and skip over that for right now. But what I want to jump into is a potential overview board. So this is especially useful if you are a sales manager, for example, and you want to see what leads your team is working on. In this case here, I have the groups broken out by quarters instead of months, so Q through Q4. And then I also have a group for all the won deals in 2019. The items and pulses, again, are names of clients. And I have all of my sales reps here in my assignee column, so I can just quickly jump to this board and see who's assigned to what the particular stages of the funnel, whether it be intro call, a presentation, negotiation, prospecting, etc. My suspected close date. I added in a timeline column to maybe account for how long I expect this deal to close. A timeline column is super helpful as well as if you guys are using some sort of trial or freemium model where, let's say if your trial product is 30 days, you might want to have the timeline as 30 days to reflect that. I have a numbers column, again, to reflect my deal size and also commission rate. And then I also have a formula column to show potential commissions. So if my commission rate is 20% and my deal size is 10K, for example, I can add in a formula, an if statement, very similar to Excel, which you guys might have already used, where it says, if a particular stage, in this case, my status column, says 1, then multiply the deal size times the commission rate to give me my commission. So that's what this formula says. So you can see here that all the items with a particular won status are going to show me how much commission this sales rep is due. And if it's not currently won, then the commission rate will not spit out here. So the formula the formula column is just a great way to add a little bit more life to the board, but it's also just another way to kind of enhance, especially different formulas that you want to, and information and data that you want to see within Monday. Again, I also have the tags column on my sales overview board because I do want a way to link my overview board to each of my sales reps boards as well. And again, just a quick reminder, if you were to click on one of these tags here, it will show you all the items in the account with that particular tag assigned to it. So I can see Lucy's sales pipeline has this renewal tag on it as well. I have it on this overview board. And if you know a particular date range that you want to look at based off of the dates that are specified either in the date or timeline column, you can also choose to filter it by date as well. So maybe if I want to see all the renewals that occurred from July up until now, then I can do so as well. And this report is exportable to Excel. Okay, let's hop back to this board here. I have a drop-down column. It's something that we released fairly recently, but it gives you a way to categorize some of your items. So I would recommend making use of it. Very similar to the tag column. It is both the tag and drop-downs are searchable within Search Everything, so just keep that in mind. In this case, I want to account for territories. So maybe if I want to see all of my reps who are working on leads by my territory called US East, or maybe APAC or EU, for example, I can simply search the name of this drop-down label in Search Everything, and it's going to show me everyone who is assigned to those leads and what the status is. Additionally, having an overview board is super helpful for giving you a nice way to just filter down information on the board level. So as you know, we have this little menu here, filter by everything, and you can choose to see perhaps deals that are just won, for example. Or maybe if I want to see deals that are in Q3 that are upcoming this month, that have a close date of this month, I can do so as well. So we do offer multiple layers of filtering, which I do recommend making use of. Tags and drop-down columns do have a better search and filtering capability than a text column. So just keep that in mind if you are planning on labeling your items to use either a drop-down or tag column as opposed to a text column. Another great reason to have an overview board is it does give you a way to use or make use of our views. And so, as you know, our chart view is our reporting tool. So this is just a great way to take this information and see it more visually in one place. So I want to take a look at this chart view here. And in this case, I have my x-axis, or I have my bar type as, my chart type as a bar. I can also choose pie or line as well. My x-axis is my sales reps, because I want to see perhaps work by sales rep. And my y-axis in this case is going to be weight by count. Weight by count just simply means how many of these tasks are assigned to each of my reps. So I want to make sure that people aren't over allocated. I can see that Tan, Kyle, and myself have the most amount of leads, and perhaps Jessica, Nate, and Lucy could handle more accounts at this time. Additionally, you can also sort by potentially who has the biggest deal size or pipeline coming in. Maybe who's owed the most amount of commissions, or maybe if you just want to see things by close won. You can use this filtering option here at the top right, very similar to the board filter, and just say, show me everything that has been won, and I can see that Tan has won the most deals on this board. So the chart view is super helpful for reporting, very visually easy to understand, also exportable to Excel. Okay, I do have some automations on this board to take this board to the next level. So let's talk about them really quickly. Some of the board automations have here. The first one, every month on the 23rd, notify my board subscribers. So if I want to automatically notify my team, hey, follow up with your counts because we have 1 week left until the month ends, I can do so through an automation. The second automation I have is when my status column of stage changes in any way, notify myself as the manager, because I want to be up to date on every time a status goes from saying intro call to presentation or presentation to negotiation. I want to understand or be on top of all of my team's leads. And then the third automation is just simply when a new item is created, notify myself. So notify me when a new lead is put onto the board. Okay. Now let's move on to a CRM board here. And very quickly, you can see the structure of the CRM board is very similar to that of my individual sales pipeline boards. The groups now are broken out by the type of account. So if it's a trial account, if it's a paying account, or if it's perhaps an active or churned account. My names of my lines, my clients, excuse me. I have my point of contact. I have my contact email, phone number, who's in charge, status columns to reflect what type of plan are they on, how did we get this lead, what was the lead source, Facebook, email, cold calling, what is the next step in terms of managing my accounts in my CRM, what is the ARR of the plan, where they located. And again, the location column is super great because it does give you a way to see things visually in a map view. And you can see where they are located in the world. It does sync with, I believe, Google Maps, excuse me. And then a drop-down column to reflect what territory they're part of, okay? So let's talk about some of the integrations and automations on this board and how it helps. So the first is automations. So the first automation I have is every first of the month, notify my sales team. Okay, so you can choose, like, if you have recurring tasks, you can say every first of the month, or maybe every Monday, for example, or maybe every other day. And notify, maybe the verbiage could say something like, hey, check in with your active accounts to see how things are going, or if there's any upsell opportunities. So again, every time that you set an automation that has something to do with notifying users, they'll receive it to their notification bell, as well as an email within an email in their inbox that is associated with monday.com. And then you can specify perhaps to notify an entire team or particular users or subscribers as well. The integrations on this board here, again, I'm making use of Gmail integrations, but Outlook is exactly the same recipes. The first one is when my status column of next steps changes to check in, send an email to my email column. So my email, the way that I built it out, the subject line is the item name and monday.com check-in. Hi, name of my POC. Are you free to go over some new features that I think will help? And then the post name is the name of the account. So just a nice way to automate your check-ins, especially if you, as an organization or as a team, want to follow up with accounts every 6 months, for example. This type of integration would be super helpful. Again, it's just triggered through a status change. And then the second integration recipe that we're using is one that we used previously is when an email from this email column is received, add in as an update. So I want all of my communication to be centralized within Monday. I can simply just add that communication directly into the item. Additionally, just as a friendly reminder, you can email directly into monday.com from your email address that is registered to your paying account. And to do so, you can click on the icon here. It looks like 3 dots, and you can go to email preferences, and you can either CC or just simply write directly to this email address here. Go ahead and copy it, and then that email will create a new item on your board. Additionally, each item also has its own identifying number. So you can copy the identifying number of a particular item and CC it, and all the communication will show up here as an update in the item. But just keep in mind that the email you're sending from does have to be registered with monday.com in order for that to work. Great. Let's move on to a sales request form board. So a common use case for sales teams is how to generate information, or how to create leads, or how to have a way for people to contact you to get a hold of the sales team. And a form is a great way to do this. So if you haven't tried out the forms feature in Monday, this is super helpful for just centralizing information within monday.com. So a form is built out of the structure of the board. In this case, I have my assignee column. This is internal, so maybe if I want an SDR assigned to each new lead to qualify them. I have an email or text column here to get that person's information. I have 2 status columns. One is I want to know what size is your company in terms of employees, and then which plan are you interested in. Okay, I have a date column to show when they submitted this request. And to add a form, you can go to your Forms drop-down menu, click on Add View, More Views, and just type in Form. Okay, but I already have a form here listed, so let's open this up. And the form here is pretty customizable, so you can add your logo to the top if you want. You can perhaps change the color of the form. And then here is where you can really customize the form. So maybe if you want to change the verbiage of the form, if you want to add a description of the question, if you want to make a question required or not, and you can also choose to hide a question on the form altogether. You can hit preview to see what it looks like before you send to a client. And this is what the form looks like when they receive that link on their end. To share a form, you can click on share form here, and we give you a shareable link that you can simply just email one of your clients to, or you can embed the link onto your website so that when one of the leads goes to your websites, they can just see this form directly onto your website, fill out the information, and their responses will populate directly onto your board. So let's actually give this a shot here. So let's just say my name is Alex G, email. Let's say my number of employees is maybe mid-market size, and I'm interested in the enterprise plan. Okay, today's date, perfect. Go ahead and hit submit. And when I jump back to the board here, you can see my response has been populated directly onto the board level. Additionally, you're probably wondering why this new response didn't go to the top group. It's because I added in an automation. So I can go to my automations, and you can use automations to really enhance your forms as well. I highly recommend it. The first one is when a status changes to, in this case, enterprise, move item to my enterprise group. So I want a way to organize my responses by what plan that they're interested in. Maybe if I want to focus on enterprise leads for this month, for example, this automation would be super helpful. And secondly is when a new item is created, assign whoever my SDR is as my SDR so that they'll be notified automatically to go in, hey, here's a new lead, check it out. So definitely recommend making use of automations for your forms board, but at least now I have all of my sales requests on one board, centralized. I know who's in charge, what lead they want, and I can go ahead and reach out directly from there. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about is dashboards. And dashboards, as some of you guys know, is a way to view and edit multiple boards from one space. So while you cannot edit multiple items simultaneously in a dashboard, it at least gives you a way to centralize information and see everything through one window. And I made a dashboard for you guys here based off of the boards that I've created for the sales team here. So let's focus in this case on Lucy and Tan's sales board. I can see perhaps their total amount of pipeline that they have on their boards. And if you want to know exactly what you're looking at, each of these what we call widgets are ways to like segment information. You can click on the settings of each widget and you can change the parameters. So maybe if I want to pull from another board in my account as well, in this case, I'm just pulling from Lucy and Tan's sales board. Which columns to include? I just want to see the deal size. Again, these are numbers columns. This is a numbers widget. I can choose perhaps like a function or maybe like what currency they're using. And then which group. So maybe if I just want to see my September and my October groups, I don't want to see close won or close lost. I only care about open leads. You can select which groups on those boards you want to see in terms of numbers. Okay. Average close probability, so again, a numbers column, and maybe the total ARR of paying accounts from the CRM board. I have a battery widget, which functions very similarly to the progress tracker. I want to see how many of Lucy and Tan's leads are currently, like what's the status of their negotiations across all of the leads that they're assigned to. I can see 10% are done, 50% are working on it, 40% are pending. So I know that they got some work to do. I added in a chart widget. It functions very similar to the chart view on a particular board. In this use case, I want to see how many or what percent of accounts are assigned to each rep. So I know that in this case, Lucy has the most accounts assigned to her. She's probably a little bit over allocated. Jess could use a little bit more accounts to her name. You can change the parameters here again by clicking on the settings or gear icon. and then you can change the x-axis. And maybe if you don't want to see it by people, you want to see it by different status columns as well, you can do so. You can also choose by date. So what I mean by that is, in this case, maybe if I want to see my deal sizes over a course of time and not so much who's assigned to it. I want to know how are we doing as an organization over a time period. This again is a chart widget, but I can go to my settings icon and let's look at my x-axis here. My column type, instead of people, it's now a date column. And then I can choose to group by my month, maybe a week, day, year. And then my columns that I'm pulling from as well, expected close date perhaps. If you guys have like a start and end date for trials, you could also put that there as well as a date column. My y-axis in this case would be my numbers column for deal size. If you want to see close probability across amount of time as well, you can also do that. And then choose which groups that you want to see. So I only want to see my leads that are closed won. I don't really care about leads that are currently pending. Okay. So that pretty much concludes at least the demonstration part of the webinar. But I do appreciate all of you guys' time today. Apologize that I wasn't able to get to everyone's questions, but feel free to shoot those over to support at Monday, and we'd be happy to address as soon as possible. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your week, and continue using Monday. Thank you.